Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Chris Bianchi, and joining me here today is 9 News reporter Darius Johnson, one of our favorites here in the newsroom. One of my favorites, I'll say that.
You're my favorite too, Chris.
Stop. But Darius, thanks so much for joining us because we are having you on today to discuss a very important three-part series, Those Left Behind, something you've been working on for months now. If you wouldn't mind just by starting off by giving us an idea about Those Left Behind and what it covers here.
Yeah, Those Left Behind is exactly almost what it seems like. Those Left Behind, it is a domestic violence series about those people who are left behind. Particularly in this case, we're looking at the children who are left behind in these incidents. So many people lose their life to domestic violence every year, and I think you always hear about that, but rarely do you ever hear about the families or you hear about the children who may be involved and who are left behind in some of these cases. I started digging into domestic violence, and I started noticing a common theme with each of the families that I started to reach out to. All of them, there were kids left behind in each of the situations, kids who no longer have a mother, kids who no longer have a father or stepfather. So life is definitely altering at that point. That's where I easily saw, wow, this is a bigger story in itself, and started reaching out to families to see who would be willing to talk and if kids were old enough and if they would be willing to talk. So definitely some barriers here with some who, may have been younger, but those who I was fortunate enough to speak with, a 19-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 26-year-old, all of whom lost their mother.
Oh my goodness, that's so sad. What prompted this? Was there a certain story that brought this about? How did you get in touch with some of these people?
What prompted this really, one, I think my background is how I kind of went about the theme and, really decided, okay, this is how I want to do this. But it's the family that you all will meet tomorrow night, the family of Trisha Sue Green Westfall. This story will air tomorrow on November 15th. She was picked up from work by her husband. He shot and killed her minutes later in the car before turning the gun on himself. They reached out to me days before her celebration of life. Quick email, it was on one of my off days. I easily responded. Ended up speaking with them. It was that family that kind of opened my eyes and made me realize there's a bigger theme here. There's a lot more to domestic violence. And once I started poking around in that one, I started finding more families. I started finding more people who were willing to talk. You start speaking to investigators and speaking to more people, and they then tell you, yeah, it's spiked this year. We're seeing some of the highest numbers we've ever seen. So you see that there's a problem, and you see that there's a common theme and a common trend, and you want to know, all right, let's talk about this now that we have the people who are willing to talk, but also not let's just talk about it. Let's talk about how it's impacting these families, and let's talk about the resources and the help that you can provide these people.
And with that in mind, by the way, when we're talking about tomorrow night, this is going to be on Wednesday night, March 2nd. Tonight, March 1st, I know you're going to have a story about a woman named Ibtisam Trabelsi. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, tonight you all will hear from Ibtisam Trabelsi's youngest son, Mazen. Ibtisam today makes 9 months, actually. 9 months ago today, June 1st, she was stabbed more than 120 times by her husband, days after she started the process to file for divorce. Her 15-year-old daughter was downstairs in the basement when this all happened, and no one ever saw it coming. Imagine her 19-year-old sitting down talking to me about his mother being killed. That's how hard these stories are. That's who you'll hear from tonight. And he did it without his oldest brother, without his young sister, without his biological father. He did it on his own. And I can't even fathom the amount of strength that even takes.
And so what time specifically will we see some of these stories?
Yeah, all of these stories, the full pieces will air at 9 o'clock on Channel 20 and at 10 o'clock on 9 News. And, I'll be at the desk with the anchors after to be able to talk about these stories as well. It'll be tonight, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll have little short versions throughout the day as well where we will kind of remind people that these stories are coming up and give you a small glimpse of these families.
And so you just said it that you've been working on this since November. Darius, I know these are powerful, important stories that you're telling for the community. So really hope that you all tune on in. But 9 News reporter Darius Johnson, thank you so much for your time here today.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it.